In Ukraine, there is an extensive way of church raids of UOC temples by supporters of the Orthodox Church of Ukraine with the active involvement of the authorities. Both the OCU and the power claim that these are voluntary traditions. Still, the UOC insists that parishioners are not voluntarily changing affiliation and their churches are seized by force. Who is right? Ukrainian Law 2673-8 regarding the subordination of religious organizations states the following. First, any meetings of a religious community are convened only by its members and must comply with the provisions of the community's charter. Second, the conditions for membership in a religious community are also determined by its charter. Third, the Standard Charter of the UOC states that only those who regularly attend services, confess and partake in communion can be its members. Fourth, the Standard Charter of the UOC states that the community's assembly is convened only by its rector. This is what the law states. However, what do we see in real life? A consistent pattern has emerged over hundreds of church raids involving several stages. Stage 1. Authorities, priests and activists of the OCU gather people for a vote on the community's transition. This can take place anywhere, like the local council, a community center, a school or a stadium, but not in the church itself. Why not? Because those gathered include individuals who have nothing to do with the religious community. Journalists from the state-owned Suspilne channel, when covering such votings, often naively admit that they are attended by completely unrelated individuals. Yelena Taranenko has come. She says she's not a parishioner of this church but came from the southwest district because she believes that everything in Ukraine should be Ukrainian. For some reason, it turns out that no one wants to switch from the Moscow Patriarchy to the Ukrainian one. I don't know why this is so. This woman, like everyone else at similar meetings, is told by the authorities and Epifani supporters that the UOC is Moscow Church. But they do not mention that the Council of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church in 2022 documented the severance of all administrative ties with the Russian Church. The UOC helps the army more than any other denomination. The sons and relatives of priests and bishops of the UOC are fighting in the Ukrainian armed forces. At the same time, the real church community conducts its legal vote, deciding not to convert to the OCU but remain within the UOC. Often both the church and territorial communities end up in opposition to each other. This occurred, for example, in Kamianets-Podilsky at the cathedral, where the mayor's assistants gathered a crowd and held a vote right in front of the temple, while the legitimate community defended their church. Stage 2. Both the lawful assembly of the UOC community and the unlawful assembly of unrelated individuals send their protocols to local authorities. However, the legitimate document is ignored by the authorities, while the illegitimate one is put into action. Based on this, the community is re-registered from the UOC to the OCU, against the will of the actual community. In many cases, authorities don't even hold a gathering for the transition to the OCU, but simply proceed with the re-registration. For example, in Ivano-Frankivsk, the UOC community filed complaints with the police and the prosecutor's office against such actions by the authorities and even sought protection from the president, but to no avail. Stage 3. Seizure. A crowd, often backed by the police and individuals in camouflage, forcefully enters the church premises, breaks down doors and takes over the church. The church community attempts to resist it, but the forces are uneven. At the cathedral in Ivano-Frankivsk, masked bandits burst in through the side doors, spray gas expelled the community along with the bishop from the church and eventually from the territory. The cathedral in Shapativka falls into the same pattern. Side doors are forced open and a few intruders unlock the central doors and take over the church. Believers are praying on their knees while the raiders are raging around them. Frequently, the doors are broken down personally by the OCU priests. For example, multiple clerics affiliated with the church, including its spokesperson Livstrati Zura, used hammers, crowbars and grinders to break down the doors of the Transfiguration Cathedral of the UOC in Bila Tserkva. Stage 4. The community of the seized church goes to pray in homes and barns. Their seized church is empty. Believers do not stay in the church with the OCU, they remain with their priest. The community of Shapativka Cathedral, for example, prays in their homes. The exiled community in Trebuchev village even prays in a tent in the forest. Meanwhile, the seized churches are either entirely or almost empty. A telling example is the refectory church of the Kiev-Pechensk Lovra. It used to be packed, thousands would gather here. Now it's different. Here is a service of the Domenica structure on the Great Feast of the Transfiguration. The huge shrine is empty. The OCU continues to seize temples of the Ukrainian Orthodox Church, with these incidents occurring daily. While the UOC loses some of its churches, it doesn't mean it loses its faithful. They continue to pray in homes, apartments, and basements. They pray like Christians of the first centuries. History repeats itself.